Over the Garden Wall is the perfect short, sweet package. 11 10-minute episodes, it's only about the length of a single movie, pilot included. But what if I told you that there was not one, but technically 4 new chapters of this story that, if you're like me, you may have had no idea existed until you came across a copy of the collected comic issues at an art book sale? This is Over the Garden Wall Hollowtown. It's a 4-part comic series spin-off of Over the Garden Wall. It opens on Wirt and Greg going down the river on a rapidly disintegrating raft. In the chaos, Greg loses a shoe to the water. This will not do. They can't keep walking through the woods like this. Greg will get a splinter. And as luck has it, they run across a carriage of odd wooden doll people. They offer them a ride to their town. It's the autumn fair, after all, and it's the perfect place to buy new clothes for little boys in need of shoes. Wirt gratefully accepts, because really, he's not dealing with Greg shoeless for the rest of this trip. When they arrive, the festival is bustling and the people seem kind. It has exactly what they're looking for. A new pair of shoes for Greg, almost perfectly identical to his old ones. But, new problem, Wirt is very, very broke. Wandering in the forest for weeks on end doesn't really pay great, and nobody seems to be looking for a box mover or an extra hand around their stall. Eventually, he comes to meet an older doll, Miss Clemens. She's looking for a babysitter, and Wirt figures he fits that bill. She leads him back to her eggshell house and introduces him to her grandchildren. Uncannily identical in pairs, they are Patience, Temperance, Concord, and Merit, and he is told they are as obedient as can be. They have a list of rules. They must not touch the china, have their school things ready by the door for the morning, are limited to a single lump of sugar in their tea, cannot have elbows on the table, can only have 1 biscuit per meal, but not after 7 p.m., like gremlins for some reason? One of the rules here strikes me as particularly odd. She states that the boys must always have their hair parted to the left, not the right. One of the boys comments he once broke this rule, but can't go back there again. With that, Wirt is ushered out, told to return that night to continue his duties. Meanwhile, Greg is searching for a tailor. He wants fancy pants for his frog, or perhaps himself, he hasn't really decided. He's trying to impress the Frog Queen, the subject of his latest game. He's confused by the fact that all the tailor's fabrics are gray. He wants a fancy, impressive outfit for meeting the Frog Queen. The tailor takes this as critique of his work and is offended by this, kicking him out of his workshop. He demands payment from Wirt for his time spent entertaining Greg, and Wirt, embarrassed, promises him some money as soon as possible. When Beatrice asks what his plan is, he tells her about his babysitting job. Beatrice does not like any of this. She finds these doll people really creepy and does not think this is a good idea. Wirt argues that the people here are nice, it's an easy job, and it's only 1 night. He absolutely refuses to steal from these people. They don't deserve that. The babysitting itself is odd. The children jokingly call him a cheater for writing down Miss Clemens' rules in his arm. But overall, they are very well behaved. After all, they are good children, and that's what good children do. Greg, however, breaks a teapot. Miss Clemens doesn't blame Wirt for the broken china. After all, she finds him an admirable young man and a good babysitter. It's Greg that's the trouble. She pays him half, too little to purchase the shoes, and says if he would like to return tomorrow without Greg, she will pay him again for the evening. The next day goes much the same as the first. Beatrice is still firmly on team, let's get out of here. There are too many red flags in this town, she thinks it is creepy as hell. One of these things is that she hasn't seen many animals around here. The only ones she finds are these weird screeching crows screaming at locals when they pass by. Greg offends, again, one of these locals. He goes to see the weaver and is confused by why everything she makes and spins is cold and gray. He wants something like her beautiful yellow dress for his frog, but her yarn is really boring. He manages, again, to offend her so badly that she expects payment from Wirt. Beatrice is on Greg's side. It's really, really weird that none of the people in town actually seem to be wearing any of the clothes the tailor sews or the weaver weaves. Wirt argues in their favor. Maybe it's like exports or something. They shouldn't be so quick to judge him. Everyone here is nice. Well, nice to Wirt, at least. It's becoming obvious the town sees Greg as a nuisance and a troublemaker. Which is kind of fair, really. He has been going around breaking china and insulting people. From their perspective, at least. And Wirt's a people pleaser. He doesn't want anyone to hate him. They assure him that no, he's a very nice young man. Nothing like his brother. Miss Clemens sits him down for a good cup of splinters and a chat. Wirt is worried about upsetting people in town. He's glad that nobody seems mad at him. Miss Clemens assures him that anyone would have trouble wrangling a little terror like Greg. Wirt unloads to her. Back at home, he was always expected to be Greg's babysitter, and then he'd look away for 3 seconds, Greg would get himself in some kind of situation, and Wirt would be to blame for his trouble. Like it's his fault that Greg behaves this way. Greg doesn't listen to him, he doesn't know what to do about it. Miss Clemens agrees that it's unfair. The adults in Wirt's life were so small-minded to treat him in such a way. That I actually agree with. Wirt is reasonably frustrated here, especially if adults blame him for what Greg does. That's not fair to him. But then Miss Clemens gets a little extreme. She tells him that Greg is holding him back. From her perspective, at least. She tells him, "You fairly blossom when he's not around. He's the dreadful albatross around your neck, Wirt, my dear boy. The fly in your ointment. The weed in your garden." She continues that it is a shame and outrage that so many think his sins should mar your soul. Jesus, lady, that's a little much. This whole story has these odd religious undertones. The names of the children, the way she speaks about Greg in terms of sins, the ideals of obedience, and what a good child should be like. It's pretty cult-like. They're isolating Wirt from his friends and family, placing social pressures on him, inflicting guilt while also trying to pull him in by offering kindness and understanding to his problems. We can assume that at this point in the story they have been in the forest for some time. After all, during the whole arc of Over the Garden Wall, we see it turn from fall to winter. And from the glimpses the show provides of his journey, they haven't exactly been coming across particularly sane and coherent people. The familiarity has to be comforting to Wirt. This place has rules and understandable social structure. They're as close to a normal that Wirt has found since they entered the forest. And while he definitely does not agree that Greg is an albatross, he doesn't want to break this veneer of civility by pushing back too hard. Meanwhile, Greg and Beatrice decide to go find Wirt. They're bored. But they can't seem to find the house he's babysitting in. They know it's the eggshell one, but all the houses are identical. They're painted barely different shades of white, and it's the middle of the night, so it's not exactly going well. On their search, they come across a man prying up boards with a hammer, throwing gray clothes down into a hole. He spots them and they're forced to run. Meanwhile, Miss Clemens is not lightening up on Wirt. She asks if he's considered staying for any longer. They're good folk, and Wirt fits right in. The town and the children love him. When Wirt deflects, she tells him, "You would deny us your company?" Wirt does not know how to answer that. She says he wounds her, that she hoped he could care for her grandchildren long term, that the town needs him. Is he unhappy here? Does he dislike them? Do they disgust him? All Wirt can say is that he has a responsibility to Greg. They have to go home. Speaking of, Greg and Beatrice have finally found the house. They collect Wirt. Wirt apologizes. Funny thing, Miss Clemens didn't need a sitter tonight, so he didn't get paid. Instead, they had such a delightful chat. Wirt is now polite, oddly so. Polite and evasive. Wirt goes on a rant when confronted by Beatrice about how strange these people are. He reduces the frog to just an animal, says they've embarrassed him with their behavior, saying just how kind they've been despite how Greg has been acting. He will be staying here permanently. Beatrice gives him heavy pushback, but he steamrolls her. He's not going to be indulging Greg's dumb, make-believe games anymore. He's such a handful, he'll forget about the frog tomorrow and it'll be some other flight of fancy. He makes Greg cry, and Beatrice blows up on him. What is his problem? This is when Beatrice knocks him off a cliff. Sure glad that wasn't the real Wirt, because instead the double splits his wooden face in half on the rocks, revealing himself as a doll in Wirt's clothing. Wirt has been locked in a cellar along with the rest of the Hollowtown folk. You see, several weeks ago, one of them complained of the creepy birch trees growing irregularly around his garden. So the town as a whole decided to chop a few down. The trees didn't like that. When the foresting party returned, they were followed by odd wild men. Poor doppelgangers. At least, that's what the foresting party told them. That these creatures had followed them and tried to take their identities. So the town locks them in a cellar. But that was just a trick, as the true imposters themselves were that very foresting party. One by one, they turned the townsfolk against each other, tricking them into locking their own into the cellars until not one of them remains. Now they are forced to work and toil beneath the homes. They wear the gray clothes the artisans were making because the people above stole their outfits to more convincingly mimic them. Wirt is terrified he's made Greg hate him. Greg, meanwhile, is gearing up for a rescue. The noise of his attempts to break in the cellar draw a mob of wooden people, and Beatrice breaks a lantern by accident, bringing the whole town up in flame. Greg can't pry the cellar open with his sad little boy hands, so he instead uses his creativity and bashes the boards in with the pot on his head. Wirt apologizes to him, just as the mob closes in. Initially, Wirt is placating to them. He does not want to be attacked, thank you very much. But then they begin insulting Greg again, and Wirt goes off on them. Greg comments it's the first time he's ever seen Wirt yell at an adult. He even punches one in the face. Hell yeah, Wirt! The flames engulf the town in trees, and Hollowtown is no more. Later, riding with the caravan of evacuated townsfolk, Wirt and Greg get that little outfit for Greg's frog maid. Bright blue and joyful. They ought to be going. It's a long walk back home. I found Hollowtown to be surprisingly accurate to the feeling of the show. The first thing I noticed was the art. Look at this art. Look at it. It is so pretty. The energy is perfect and the plot has that child-friendly uncanniness and horror that the show is famous for. The way they talk to Wirt especially does it for me. They are so aggressive in trying to make him discard his own brother. And Wirt is bad under pressure. He has a hard time standing up for himself and prefers just to do what he's told and not cause a fuss. You can see this exact thing discussed in the Animal School episode. The weird wooden people are delightfully creepy as well. It's social anxiety as horror, and it's beautiful. Considering the biggest theory for what the unknown is purgatory, the religious angle is something I'm surprised wasn't more overtly tackled in the show, really. What I think makes it so effective for me is that they're not just coming out of nowhere. They dig into Wirt's real insecurities. Greg is rude. He does mess up here, even if he really doesn't know what he did wrong. Wirt isn't irrationally upset about all this. Watching Miss Clemens use that to try and needle at Wirt just feels gross. In a good way. I mean, it's really good. Go read it. But anyway, that's all for me. For my question today, let's go with what your favorite episode is and why. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out for more content like this, and I'll see you next time. For now, thanks for watching, and good night.